Okay, let's get started. Welcome everybody to the Cimatron 2024 virtual user group meeting. First of all, I'd like to thank everybody for attending. I know we're all quite busy and we have a lot of good things to show here. So we'll go ahead and jump into this. So Dave, take it away.
Okay, thank you, Ralph. Let me make myself the presenter and we will hop over to our recording. All right, so I'm an application engineer with Cimatron for a number of years here, so I've had the good opportunity to work with many of you. I always look forward to the user group meetings because I get to see people I haven't seen in a while, and it's always a fun event. So as much as we enjoy this one, I especially look forward to next year when we get to meet in person again. So with that, let's go ahead and we have recordings of what is involved with the new software, and we'll let it play. It is our privilege to welcome you to the 2024 Cimatron User Group Meeting. We will talk about the new release of Cimatron 2024 and show you the highlights, things that are new, things we hope you will find useful and improve your experience using Cimatron. Of course, as we go through the presentation, we're assured you're going to have some questions, so feel free to ask those questions. We will have a question and answer session after each individual presentation, so please put your questions in the chat section as we go along. Then we'll be able to answer those as they pop in and deal with them in order. Now, if for some reason we cannot give you a satisfactory answer or it's going to take too long, then certainly we will get back to you as soon as we can. And please remember the session is being recorded and we will release this recording then at a later time. Again, thank you for being with us for this presentation. The first thing we're going to talk about today is Connect. This is something that we're very excited about and we see it has tremendous potential. It's a great way for you to stay in touch with us and to get information to us that we need. So here you see the login screen and you see the address for Connect. Make sure that address is exactly as it appears here. You will have your own login and password, and this will connect you with your information, your company information, the different logs that you might have put in, or any other thing that you'll see demonstrated here briefly. So let's look at what's available here. As soon as you log in, you'll find a knowledge base. This contains recent information and is constantly being updated. You'll be able to review your support cases, check the files that you've sent to us. Also, if there's a particular feature you'd like to see, you can record that. You can download the latest version of Cimatron or download TeamViewer. And also you have a link to our website, which we encourage you to review periodically. There you'll find latest webinars, white pages, customer stories, a lot of videos too that help to understand the software, understand how to use it based upon whatever particular topic you're the most interested in. So let's take a live look at it. We'll go into our knowledge base, and once you're in the Cimatron section of the knowledge base, you'll find it's based on different topics. So whichever topic is the one that you need more information on, you can simply click on it. Here, if we go into data interface, we can find this article on dimension precision, or you can use the search tool, which makes it a lot easier. So if I type in import, now I can find the article on importing an Excel table to a drawing or whatever the case may be. So as we get more information, we'll publish different articles and add to the knowledge base. So you'll see this constantly growing. Also, you can look up specific support cases that you've logged with us, and you'll find the status of them. You can add notes to that. You can see also area where we can add files. So if you need to send us a file, you simply click on it, or there's a nice feature too that makes it easy just to simply drag and drop the file. So it's very convenient to work with, and it's a great way to get that information to us that we need. You also have the ability to create a new log right here. So you simply tell us what the main subject of it is, and you can give it a priority if it's critical. If your machine is down, it's critical. Or is it something that we can get to within a few minutes? Also, you can, again, likewise, give us a basic description of it. This will go into the log base where you can track it. And again, you can also add a file if you so desire. So lots of flexibility here in terms of getting information back and forth and keeping track of everything. In File Manager, you can simply delete files you sent to us or files we've sent to you, or it's just a way of managing the information that we're exchanging back and forth. Under Suggestive Feature, this is something we really want you to use. Is there something you'd like to see in Cimatron? Log it in here. Give us that article that we can use to take to R&D. You can also review things that are already in place that people have put in, and you can vote on them in terms of priority. So if we see a lot of votes going for a certain subject, that's going to help us then to communicate to R&D how critical this enhancement is. So think of things you'd like to see enhanced, things with additional functionality added to it, all kinds of things that you can use here. If you want to download the latest version, under Download Products, you're going to see the latest patch for, in this case, Cimatron 16, soon to be 2024. There's an area where you can download TeamViewer. That way we can see each other's screen, and also the link to our Cimatron webpage, which again, we encourage you, please take a look at that from time to time to check out the latest webinars. Let's spend a few minutes now and review some of the general items you'll find new in Cimatron 2024. There's been some work done on the graphics so that as you rotate a part around, you'll see that curves and text and things like that are now going to be hidden fully. So in this example, you see the blue text of the Cimatron 2024 user group. When this is rotated, it remains hidden behind the block. Also, the wireframe pen is going to remain the same size as it's being rotated. With the mouse, some things have been added. If you have a mouse that has additional buttons, such as this example with 2 buttons on the left side, you can now program those for the next and previous actions found in the Cimatron browser. You'll see those on the Explorer panel, where you have the forward and backward arrow. Those are programmable to those 2 mouse buttons. In our UCS, some things have been added to the filter when using UCS by center of geometry. Now, in addition to picking an object, you can pick sketches or composite. You can include points, as you see those items marked out on the part filter. A new type of UCS can be created, UCS by cylinder. So in our example here, you see how that UCS is placed at the end and center of the cylinder, and the Z direction is going to follow the center line or the axis of that cylindrical body. In data management, we have 2 new part properties, such as volume and mass, as you can see on the property panel. And these 2 properties are also supported by symbolic text. And finally, with symbolic text, we also have 2 new things we can use. One is created by and modified. So these can appear on drawings or other documents with the use of symbolic text. This brings us now to our first major section, modeling. So we're going to talk about anything that's new in wireframe, faces, and solids. One thing of note is within data interface, we now have the ability to import a PDF directly into drafting. And you can see on the right with the import and export screens, the values and the options that are available to you. Likewise, we can export a drafting file to a PDF as well. Blend has seen some improvement within faces, you'll see the option on screen of smooth faces connection. This allows us to much easily keep control over the slope as we build the face, going from tangent to tangent in this case. Within the two functions of curve fillet and fillet, we have the ability now to split faces. For quite some time, trim all was there, as you see on screen, and now you have the option to split all. And this is something important that was asked for by our die designers so that they could create run-out conditions using the fillet function much more easily. Close open gaps has seen some improvement. There is a much better auto selection, and also now we can select blind holes. And as you look at these examples of this particular mold, you can see that it does some very involved work in some cases to create these different shutoffs. The function of extend has had some improvement made to natural extension. Here you see a true round cylinder that's been trimmed with a unusual curvature to it. As that face is extended, you can see now it comes across to a shape on the top that is true to its geometry, or squared off, you might say. So improvements have been made within the extend function. Under drive within solid, we now have an option that allows us to control the Z reference section. So it can keep the section normal as it in the Z direction as we build it, walking it around the different geometry. A lot of work has been done under the realm of chamfer. One thing is it's easier to select the faces. You see in the top picture that the faces filter is available. So by picking a face, as you see below, it will easily wrap a chamfer around the outer edge. Resize chamfer is a brand new function. It works very similarly to resize rounds. It has the same options available of making it larger, making it smaller, or putting in your own value. So with all the different chamfers picked on screen, as the example shown here, it'll be enlarged by 31 thousandths. Now to do that, we also have included a new selection mode. This is so that it makes it much easier to pick the different chamfers. The option of expand to chamfer is now available, and it works similar to expand to round. So if I pick one section of the chamfer, it will now automatically chain through all the other sections so that I can pick it all in a single pick. Within solid, the rib function has seen a lot of work. You now can distinguish if you want to add or if it is a new rib, new part, that's available. There's been some work done on the conflict solver to make it easier to identify areas that need adjustment and solve it. We now have partial results to go along with complete results. And as this picture shows, it's going to automatically extend to fill in the gaps next to the rib. So in this case, that green line is what was used to drive the rib. And as you can see, there'd be a gap on both sides. But using the option of close gaps between ribs and objects, it now extends out to the neighbor wall to close that in. You'll see some improvement in rounded top. You'll get better results there. And it now supports multiple curves. So if you want to create the rib in different sections, different areas all at once, it will do that by picking multiple curves. Within volume text, some improvement has been made with the sunken protrusion option, allowing you to better control the margins in the box of the text. Cut now sees all attributes are transferred from the object that's doing the cutting to the object that's been cut. As you can see in the example of the two cuts here, the colors are transferred, just as example. Within curves, a couple things have been done. One is a brand new function called cylindrical center lines. And here you see an example of where I'm picking some water lines, and it's going to create the center line for me of these water lines. As it does so, it has the options of trimming the lines as it creates it. You can do different colors or make it all a single color, put it on different sets. All of this is for our users who use Moldex 3D, and they asked that all they would have to do is export the different center lines to Moldex 3D and just use those pieces of geometry then to build the water lines right within Moldex. So it's just a matter of making things quicker, making things easier for simulation. And also within Curve is a new addition to the direction control, or line by direction. You now can set it to 2 directions or both sides. It can be controlled by typing in a delta value or by picking a reference with an offset, as you see here. Within analysis, we've seen some improvement, such as here we're looking at the angle analysis, draft angle. The readability is much easier. When you look at an angle, you'll see it much more clearly. Plus, it will be identified in the direction that it's being pulled in, the value, so it will be a nice clear text that you can read. And also, when you look at the 2 directions option there at the bottom, you'll now see there's a new color to identify just the vertical areas. So you have your first and second direction, your undercut, just as before. Now there's the inclusion to separately identify straight up and down vertical walls. Just as a reminder, please check out the What's New document and on your own time when you later get the opportunity, so that you can go through all the different new things and options and changes that have been made that you're going to find now in version 2024. With that, let's get into the demonstration as we show you some of the new and exciting features you're going to find within Cimatron 2024. So we mentioned previously that within import there is some functionality now to read a PDF file directly into drafting. So we can read into model space and also drafting. Here you see me demonstrating this by just going through my drive, finding a PDF file, and then from here let's take a look at the options. So under parameters, we'll find some things that allow us now to work with the different entities that you see. We have an option for the type of hatching. It could be password protected. We could go into the model space, drafting space, both. But that option now, being able to do that in drafting, is available. So we'll load the file up. You can take a quick look at it. Here you see a drawing of our demo part that we'll be using throughout this entire user group meeting. Let's look now at some things that are new under faces. So here we have our part. We've already split it using quick split, so you see the 2 different pull directions. Now we're going to feature close open gaps. So here a simple box pick lets me pick all those open areas, and we'll go ahead and run it. Now it's definitely got some improvement in terms of how it selects the open gaps. It has given us more consistent results we're finding, and also it will select blind holes. Now these faces may or may not be exactly what I want. In this case, I'd like to put a round down in that lower corner, and that's easy enough to do. So working with those faces made by close open gaps, you can see that it builds them as a sheet solid. Okay. With that, let's go ahead and assign the parting attributes to these new faces. So nothing new here. This is the same thing we've been doing for quite some time, working with quick split and parting attributes. And I'm just going to take my time, make sure I get what I want to display to you exactly what I'm doing here. And this is to set up down the road something else that we find improved in 2024. Okay, simply pick those new faces, select the 2 different directions, and there we have that showing the shutoff condition between the 2 splits. All right, with that, let's jump over to the other half, and again, we're going to use close open gaps. I'm just going to single pick those two contours. So I've isolated them, and now you see the results it builds in this case. So very nice. Again, just something simple just to progress forward here with our presentation. We'll take those new split faces. Picked an extra one. And we want to put those in position where we can assign parting attributes. All right, so if you've been using this for a while, you know exactly what I'm doing. Okay, that task is now accomplished. We could keep going on, but we want to jump over to something else and talk about another subject while we have our part on the screen here. Within QuickSplit, you have the draft angle analysis tool. So using the colors, using the values, you can set your angles to whatever range of colors you'd like to see. There's definitely been some improvement in the graphics when it comes to draft angle analysis. Here, if I go directly into the function itself, it's a standalone version of the function, we'll take a look at the different opening directions here. So this would be the second option. Under the settings, you see you now have a color for vertical areas. So you have your two directions, the primary directions. You have undercut still, but now we've added the ability to create a new color for straight up and down vertical areas. So that helps in identifying those critical places and to understand, exactly what the part is showing us here. Let's spend a moment now and work with the function faces blend. Of course, when we use blend, usually we're trying to establish some tangency. So as I pick my two surface edges I'm blending between, you'll note that right away under slope control, it's set up a tangency of C1. And there's the option of smooth faces connection on the on-screen menu. So it's done that as default automatically for me. Let's select these two face edges to be the rails I ride the blend on, and there you have it. So it does speed up using blend with that option. Next, we want to set it up so that we can show what's new in the fillet function. To do that, I'm going to sketch just a few lines out here that I'll turn into some faces, and then we're going to create a binder from that. And the whole idea is to simulate what happens in die design. And that's the whole reason why this enhancement has been added to fillet. All right, there I've got my binder in progress here. I want to have everything nice and smooth on my binder, so let's put some rounds on those angled corners. Now everything should be smooth, tangent to tangent. That's just the ideal condition. Pick our first set of faces for fillet. We'll pick our second set of faces, which will be in this case the binder faces. In the light blue curve you see, that's showing us in preview what the radius is like. Of course, I might play around with the radius value. I want to preview it to see if the radius actually gets all the way across where it needs to. Looks like 0.375 is a good radius. And on my first set, we'll do split all, which is the new addition in fillet. That allows me to keep what I would have before trimmed off. Trim all was the only other option previously. With that, we'll start stitching all this. So I want to stitch together my binder faces. So let's just flip that around and say, just give me the orange or brown color faces. So using my filter, we can use that. We'll hide that. All right, that leaves the light blue cyan color. We'll stitch that back in. Why not? We'll just include the blend face as well. You can see that line that demarks where the split is. So it's coincident to the part and the binder. Now we'll go ahead and show you what we would have done. The whole idea of this was to create this binder that we'll develop our blank out onto. We see this a lot in the die industry. It's a way of forming it so as to avoid getting wrinkles. So as we run the blank function, we'll just let it go and develop out onto our new binder. All this is made possible now because of that addition of split all within the fillet function. So we hope you'll use that and take advantage of that new functionality. We'll show you now a couple of unrelated functions, but they do well here on our demonstration part. There's been some work done to extend. So as we go into faces, extend, you'll see I'm set to natural, and it's under the natural functions that we see this. So with continuous, you see it's taking that curved cut face and then it's extending it out to a flat. So that extension has been improved. All right, now hopping over to solid, let's get onto a whole nother subject here. Under chamfer, something interesting has been done here, right? So it says to pick edges. So normally I could just walk around a part, chaining it and chamfering it as I go, okay, because I have the smooth chain option on. We'll go ahead and make a symmetrical chamfer, set to 20 thousandths. There it builds it all. So that's all the way we're used to seeing chamfer, but it also now has something in the filter which allows you to pick a face. So if I pick faces, such as this one, and then say, go ahead and build it, it now wraps itself around the outer edge of that face. So that's a very quick and easy way now to pick edges for the use in chamfer. Additionally, other things have been added. There's a brand new function now called resize chamfer. It works just the same as resize round. And to do this, we have a new filter, expand to chamfer. And that works the same as expand around. So the idea is you pick a chamfer and it just chains itself to all the neighboring chamfers all the way around. So I'll pick this small chamfer going around the outer edge of this open area. Again, you have enlarge, you have reduce, that's the same as round. You can define the chamfer by set size. You can pick geometry to reference the size by. We'll go ahead and say, give us a global chamfer of 20 thousandths. So we're going to change that to that numeric value, making it something that's now defined and editable. Let's move on now to solid drive. Here we've done some improvement on how we can control the cross section. So I've drawn this simple little rectangle you see here as the cross section. And then with a composite curve, I'm going to drive it along this edge. And you can control it normal, parallel, just like before. But under your options, you now have the ability to set it at Z referenced, which makes it a lot easier to hold on to that shape as you're driving it along the edge. All right, that way the cross section stays more up and down as opposed to tipping in a normal as it sweeps around. We'll take a look too at volume text. So let's just type in something simple here, and then we'll go ahead like we're going to engrave that on our mold. Here's the word text. We'll do some rotates and get it in position. And we'll pick what type of option we want. Looks like I need to rotate that a little more. I'm just eyeballing it here, so nothing too fancy. The option of sunken protrusion now has more values to it, where you can add things like putting the box on it, controlling the box size, controlling a radius on the box, your overall thickness, all that. So there's just been some enhancement made to improve the experience of working with this sunken protrusion. And of course, we use text a lot for engraving, identifying parts of molds, things like that. So it's an important feature. The function of rib continues to become more and more robust. More and more things are being added to it, and this release is no exception. Here I've got a line that's meant to define the top of my rib. So here you see the options of new and add are both now available. And you have the option of reference, which I'll pick here just to illustrate what reference does. There you see in preview, it goes all the way down to that red face that I picked. All right, maybe I'll change my reference. It'll go all the way as far as it can to that second red face. Of course, it's going to build it throughout, so it's not checking the part itself yet. When I use the option of to closest, though, it now does check the part, and it won't interfere with the back, but it goes as far as it can to touch those bottom faces. There's the additional height offset, which allows you to make it bigger, make it smaller, flat top, round top. Round top has seen some improvement, so we're getting a better geometrical round on that top. Maybe we'll zoom over to another location here and do some more examples of rib. Here you see I've got a couple little pieces, and here just one little sliver just to define that rib, but it illustrates how important the option now of close gap between rib and object. So if I run it with that object or that option and go ahead and preview it, you see it's pushed it all the way to the far edge, going as far as it possibly can inside the part. Whereas if I kept it just the way it was, it only builds it off the geometry. So that's a nice enhancement to ensure that there are no gaps on the ends of those ribs. It also will now let you pick multiple entities. So more than one curve can be used when building the rib. So you have basically mathematically the same rib, just in two different locations now, or three, or however many you pick. You also have the option now of complete result or partial result. Last but not least, let's take a look at what's new in wireframe. So here I've got a cooling part already built, and you can imagine you're in the situation now where you want to simulate the water flow and injection, so you're going to send this information over into Moldex. Within Moldex, you have the ability to use just the center lines to define those water lines. In some cases, it's just so much easier. So what this function does, cylindrical center lines, is it extracts that center line for you. It'll trim it up, do whatever it needs to do, give it different colors, put it on different sets, and it'll give you that center line that you can use to drive water lines in Moldex. So it's just a great way to keep it nice and easy, nice and simple. So let's turn everything else off here and give you a look at what this is doing. All right, simply blank our water line. There you see the center lines. Okay. Now, in addition to that, another wireframe function has seen some improvement, and that's just the simple line function. All right, so when you pick your point, so we'll just go line by direction here. When you pick the point where you're going to drive that line, you now have the option of going both sides. And it also has by reference, by delta. So when I pick here, you'll see the lines go, I'll find a spot that's easier to pick, go up and down, so in both directions. And of course, your little direction control tool is available to you on the right, where you can reference which directions you want that to go to. All right, so a nice way of creating it as one line instead of two separate little lines. And that now brings us to the end of our first segment, dealing with modeling. So hopefully we showed that to you in a way that gets you excited about using it in 2024. At this time, let's break out into a quick Q&A session. If you have any questions, we'd like to hear from you, and we'll answer them as they come in.
Yeah, I don't see any questions yet, Dave. So, again, if anybody has a question, just throw it out there in the chat. We'll also have questions. Here's one question that come in, Dave. Was the cooling lines trimmed per the circuit?
And the answer to that is yes. So wherever two lines would crisscross at that point, that's where they'll be trimmed at. So it's not like they will overlap as if they go all the way to the drill tip, but only where the intersection occurs. That's all that Moldex needs in order to do the simulation. Okay, oh, they're coming in now. Okay, in the split view, is there a way to divide a face along its split? Like if it's a complex face where some of it would be undercut? You can, you'll be doing it manually. All right, so what I'll do is sometimes use like silhouette, and that finds where that split line should occur if the face is kind of curving back under itself. So I just set that at like 0 or 90 degrees and split it at that point. And then when I go into the quick split tool, I can assign one to the top, one to the bottom. Hopefully that gives you some clarity on that. For the properties of the component, showed a field for mass and volume. Are these auto-populated? There was no info shown. Okay, so no, those are not auto-populated. That would be something nice, though. We can compute it. So if you go into your measure tool, you can get area and volume. So when you use that and then create a, put in the value for whatever the density is, I believe, then you can, get those numbers that you can now input on the property panel. The function rib is included in which license?
It's in any license that has the CAD mode.
Okay. So it should be pretty much with just about everything, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay. It looked like when you closed open gaps, you were able to add the radius on the bottom by selecting a radius that was already there, and it knew what that was. Is that new? Actually, no, it's not new, but it's definitely worth talking about. So when I create that radius, there's a little icon next to where you type the value in, has kind of a curve on it. You just simply pick that, and now anywhere on the screen on the part where there's a curve, it will measure it for you and input that as the value that you're going to create those new radiuses by. So yeah, nice catch. That's a nice little part of the radius or round function. Does the volume text improvements include the ability to precisely locate where the text is located on the model? The placement of volume text is still the same as before. So if there are things about that that you didn't like, those things are still there. So you saw me trying to navigate it in. Yeah, that's something that's the same. So maybe down the road we can enhance that a bit too. There's issues signing in to connect Cimatron. Will that be fixed soon? Yes, there's some things that we still have to get done to get this to work right. What we need you to do is going to be obviously call technical support, and then they're going to set you up with the password and login. There were some things that I was talking with Matt about that earlier. There's some things that are still kind of needing to be enhanced in there. So once we get that resolved, we'll let you know, and then once that's out of the way, you should be able to connect easily.
I saw that they just made a new release of the Connect with some of the fixes, but definitely reach out to support if you're having issues, because they can get you set up correctly.
Okay, yeah, thanks. All right, good. Yeah, please use that. We're excited about it. And if we can document, all the different enhancements you want, that is just great. That really helps speed things along. And likewise, you can keep track too of where all your issues are in our system and know where we're working on it. Has the design libraries been updated? You're talking about the catalogs? To my knowledge, all the catalogs have been updated. So that's worth checking out.
Everybody should know that the catalogs are cloud-based now. So if you go into the Cimatron control panel, that's where you set up which catalogs you want to be connected to the cloud. And as they get updated, you'll get notices to update your catalogs. So it's not release dependent.
All right, thank you. Yep. And it's worth updating those catalogs periodically. Okay. All right, do the function hide wireframe in ZPR permanent, or is it possible to remove it? So if you're talking about if we rotate and how we hide wireframe entities, I think that is how it is. You can always make your solid, though, transparent, and I believe that still shows surface edges, so I believe that we could try it, see if that shows,
You can turn off
wireframe.
You can turn off hidden line, hide wireframe. It's under the view drop down.
Oh, it is. Okay. Thank you, Danny. So Ethan has the question, will PMI be getting a MAD upgrade? Don't close me on this, or don't clown me on this. I honestly don't know. Have you guys heard anything about that?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll have
I'm
to.
not understanding what he's asking.
Okay. Maybe you can give us a bit more information, Ethan, so that we can understand better. I don't know of anything scheduled for PMI at this point. So go with that, and we could probably get more information too. We just have to do a little bit of digging. Looks like in 2024 version, we cannot change unit under file property.
Yeah, that's been addressed already and is scheduled to be out in the next patch.
Very good. Okay. And then Ethan, will PMI be getting an upgrade? I think, yeah, we tried to touch on that. And it doesn't upgrade well in the 2D. So you're saying when it gets into the drafting environment, it's not that clear? Okay. Andy comments, call support for any sign of the issues. Thank you, Andy. Filleted radius functions keep failing in the complex geometry. Will that be fixed in 2024? Chances are if it failed in version 16, it will have the same issues here in 2024.
They're doing a lot of work on the modeling, so you're going to see it getting better and better. But in some cases, mathematically, it's not going to work. So it is going to fail. You know, like when you put that rad on the die part there, the half inch didn't go because mathematically it couldn't solve that kink.
Exactly.
Right? So you reduced it down to 375, but they have done a lot of work on improving all of that. So you'll see it getting better and better over time, especially like the close open gaps, right? You showed that. That is getting much stronger, right? So
yeah, a lot of times we see too, like when one function gets better, something must have happened where they communicated things with ACES. So that's the solver, that we're using behind the scenes. So when that improves, that kind of increases the ability of solids across the board. And we've seen it over and over again with each release, even updates, that things that might have failed before are now working much better. So it's always worth trying because like in Electrode, for example, the way the solids option just increased in functionality or improved in their ability just dramatically from one release to the next, it's definitely worth continuing to check on that. And you make the comment that Cimatron crashes with that. Well, hopefully as we continue on, we'll be able to resolve that.
A lot of the crashing issue is related to the graphics and the graphics drivers. Definitely reach out to tech support on that because they got a great handle on all of that and customizing your settings for your graphics cards or getting you to the right drivers. So a lot of that can be solved real easy by just reaching out to tech support.
Okay. Moving on, in version 16, there was a bug in 2D detailing where when placing a dimension, it would flip its location. Has that been fixed in 2024? I'd have to specifically look at that. We will get into drafting here this morning. We'd have to check on that specific bug for the flipping. Maybe, let's see, Andy, if you're watching, maybe that's something you can check on.
It looks like one of our guests, Scott, has chimed in on this. He says that his was fixed in the very last patch for version 16.
Okay, excellent. Thanks, guys. And let's see, another one on unit. Okay. Back to catalogs for a second. For example, DME has changed their designs, some to add guided ejection as standard, return pin locations changed, etc. Who does the updated CAD? How would these be updated in the catalogs?
So this is something that would R&D probably has been updated about, and we have a catalog team in R&D that updates the catalogs, and they're probably going to update that. The other thing is we do have a partnership with DME. They have the ability to design and update any catalog components that they're going to be passing to us, and then we can add them to the catalogs. So a great partnership with them to quickly get the updates. As we all know, they're changing things quite often, and to keep track of that and go through their catalog all the time is quite laborious. So they now have the option to do that and pass that information along to us. So we'll see those updates getting passed along to the end users quicker.
Okay, very good. Yeah, didn't Dan Branch work with them on some conformal
Yep.
units? So, yeah. How often will patches be coming out? Hopefully as needed.
Yeah,
They've been
that's
pretty
a
quick.
moving target. It's like the file units thing is a pretty big bug. So that's going to move the patch along sooner so we can get that out. So hopefully, they'll get them out as quick as possible.
Yeah. Zipping past a few things we've already commented on. See, Zach, are we still able to change the import preferences for drag and dropping models into Cimatron? I believe there was a way to change unit measurement and other parameters in 16, but I can't seem to find it in 2024. I am not aware that changed.
Yeah, there's no change. That's still available from the import. If you go to File Import, you can change your default settings for importing whatever type of file you're importing in.
Okay, good.
And when you drag and drop a file, it uses whatever the default settings are.
Okay, excellent. Jesse, is there a way to use the center of geometry UCS like before? If I recall, in previous version, it puts the UCS in the center of the area of the face. In version 2024, it puts it in the center of the volume. I have missed that there is a filter. We're going to talk about that UCS when we get further ahead here. Again, I'm not sure there's any change on that. There's been enhancements to creating UCS, and there's also been some work done when you're bringing a mold part in, and you're doing your mold splits, that when you work with the UCS on your cavity locations, there's some things you can do, and we'll get into that as well. Any thoughts, Danny, on that?
There's been no change in the way that it works.
Yeah.
There is no filter that I'm aware of that allows you to pick the center area of a face during the creation of a UCS by center of geometry, unless you've only selected one face.
Just that face. Yeah, exactly. Okay. In 2024, when creating a composite curve, it doesn't highlight the line like it used to. So it goes off of a tangent you don't want, you can't change it on the fly. Is there a way to turn that back on? I've seen in 2024 where it's harder for me to see the composite.
No, this is an
it.
issue. This is an issue with view hide curves.
Ah, makes sense.
So right now in the if you go to view under the very first, let me just share my screen.
Got it.
If you go to view, I'm in that's version 16. Hold on just a second. It's up here. View hide curves behind. So right now, when you're trying to create a composite, it's actually hiding the preview behind the faces. If you turn this off, then it will go ahead and show. I would recommend just setting this to a hotkey so you can turn it on and off at will. It does make it really nice when you're working but not creating curves to be able to have the curves behind the object. But at the same time, it's nice to be able to see them when you need to.
Right, exactly. So yeah, Jake is saying the same thing about hiding the curves. So that's a good one to keep in mind, is that function there that Danny pointed out. Okay, Andy made the comment. It's supported by default. We expect this also to be handled in the next patch. Okay. Another subject here, our friend Milan. Billets work out the kinks, but rounds do not. It's frustrating. Okay, so a previous comment from the fillet option. When are you going to fix Boolean operations based on tolerance? If the tolerance is set at 0.1 millimeter and cut solid is coincident, should not be an error for the calculation. Can't catch the rest of it. I don't know if there being a change of making any distinction in the tolerance. I think it kind of is what it is right now. We can probably get a more definitive answer, though, look into that a little deeper.
Yeah, I think that this is a limitation probably of the kernel. So regardless of what system you're using, many systems have trouble cutting coincident faces, and it can be very annoying at times, but it's my understanding that that's buried down pretty deep in the kernel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. When importing a model, is there a one-click solution to hide all the existing UCS instead of highlighting each part and hiding it? Have you used the UCS filter? It seems like that might be a nice option.
Actually, there is an answer for this. If you've, let me open a file and share my screen again. And I will see if I can, I'll show it in 16 because I've got an assembly open. Right now, I've probably got all my displays or my datums hidden. If I go ahead and display all of those, if I want to hide all of them when the main assembly is active, main assembly, I can click this button right here. Then I can filter only for datums. No points. Pick all the datums and hide them all at once. Then I can flip that off. This allows you to reach into parts without activating them and hiding faces or solid objects within a part without actually having to activate them. But for the most part, I never leave this turned on because I don't like to accidentally shut off pieces and parts of a assembly item, a component.
Okay.
And we had the same thing in coloring. You can turn it on and off for individual faces within a file or for the objects themselves. So that's, I believe, this button right here, entities versus components. That's a toggle on, toggle off.
Okay, very good. I see Andy commented on this too, saying that there's a good chance we'll have something in 2025 for that. Okay. Let's see, what do we have left here? The model. Several times when changing UCS for multiple locations on a machine, Cimatron crashes. Is there a fix for that? We'll probably have to deal with that on an individual basis.
Yeah, this is important to reach out support when you to support when you have issues like this, so we can dive into it. Is it a bug? Is it something that needs to be fixed? So they can turn it into R&D. So that sounds something like you should reach out to support on.
Yeah, exactly. And then 2024 e-manual available for individual modules. I know that they recognize we need to do some work on that. So there's always some training files in there. There's always the help files, but in the end, we're really asking them to improve the manuals that we have so that you can have more information, easier to access and clearer information. So yeah, we hope to see improvement in that.
Yeah, this is something that was brought up at the technical roundtable that was a high priority for a lot of countries. So this is important to the TRT. So this was something that we definitely discussed, and they're definitely going to do some major overhauling of the tutorials and the help manuals and all of that. So good outcome from the TRT.
Okay, good. Thank you, everybody, for your questions. Good feedback here.
Dave, do we want to take like
one more?
A 5? Oh, go ahead, Danny.
There's one more question. It just popped in.
From Terry. In the BUM table editor, could you add renumber all ID from a specific number and exclude numbers? Right-click menu. Sorry, it just jumped on me. Right-click menu in active BOM include add, show, hide, and a right-click menu in the exclude BOM include add, show, hide. We could look at doing that. That's a nice idea. There is some things that we'll talk about with BOM when we get to assembly. So we might table that for right now until we get all that information. But if you're talking about enhancements, that's, yeah, definitely we'll want to look at what we can add further to BOM. And then finally, Scott's asking for a webinar on mold design, mechanism assembly. Maybe that's something we can get scheduled as like a webinar down the road.
Yeah, that's a great topic. We should make sure that it gets a high priority moved up, because there are several thumbs up on that I can see already. So we'll get with Matt and his team and maybe put something together for that.
Perfect. And yes, we are going to show drawbeads when we get to that section.
So
okay, guys, let's go ahead.
Why don't we take a 5-minute break so everybody can, refresh their drinks, go to the bathroom or whatever. So we'll get back together here at 10:10, and then we'll continue on.
Okay.
There are two things I'd like to say before Dave takes back over. When I shared my screen earlier, I had a lathe on the screen, and we're not really supporting this type of lathe. I am just playing with it. So if anybody saw that and thought, wow, that's great, I have one of those, not so fast. We're really not gonna actually support this type of machine. The second thing that I can say is, from the UCS manager, there are other options in here as well that help you hide the UCS that you have in a part. So typically this may be the view that we're accustomed to looking at, or from selected components, but you have the opportunity to select coordinate systems like this and then hide all of them right here. So that's less clicks than what I did a few moments ago. I just thought about that and thought, well, I would go ahead and show everybody that as well.
Yeah, good. Yeah, thanks for pointing that out. Okay, good. We have a lot of tech people here with us, a lot of tech support. So, keep your comments coming, guys. If you have questions, even if it's a bit off topic, we'll try our best to get to everything. Okay. All right. So with that, we can move on to assembly and things related to that. And here we'll talk about die design, mold design, and electrode all together, the new things in 2024. We'll continue on then with our next presentation in our 2024 user group meeting. And this topic is going to be all things related to assembly. So we'll talk about assembly itself, die design, mold design, electrode, all of those particular topics that deal with assembly. Of course, we'll have our question and answer session right after this. So if you want to type those questions into the chat box, that would be great. And of course, we'll record this. So a few things we'll go over now about assembly. One is that the BOM now can distribute the ID numbers into sub-assemblies, which you see kind of displayed there in the graphics. Catalog, after you make changes to it and edit it, it will preserve the formula. We've had some requests about that, and just glad to let you know we finally have that. You'll see some changes in the assembly tree. There is a new main button, or you might call it a light bulb, right by the main assembly that allows you to control the visibility. And with the assembly tree now, you have some special icons. Okay? There's a look to the suppressed icon. There's also a different look for a deep hide icon. All right, so you can kind of see in the assembly tree the light bulb with the dot to the side at the very top. Then you have regularly lit light bulbs, meaning they're displayed. The one with the dot in the middle, that's for deep hide. And then while the gray is still to show that it's not displayed, the suppressed ones now are white, so they're clear. We'll get used to the colors. We'll go through that again too as we get into the software. This is listed under die design, but setup is across the board. There's just been a change of icon in the formulas. So there you see the little squiggly FX thing showing that there's a formula, and it has to do with when a formula is using rounding by catalog. Here's a brand new function just for our die customers. The Drawbead function. As you can see, there are two different profiles that you can use to create the Drawbead. We'll call this the infancy of the function. This is its debut. So we hope you'll beat it up for us, make recommendations. You can use our connect to do just that. And let's really drive this particular function into something that's tremendously useful. In mold design, you'll see when you walk into the dialog, you hit your wizard to start your mold design, and up comes your dialog here. You'll see some changes like it's highlighted here. And the idea is just to improve the communication. Set the master part, set the work part. Here you get a better description of what those two terms mean. And then once you're inside of mold design, you'll see that now you can preview in mold position using your work coordinate system. There you see the button calculate center of gravity. All right, very nice addition. So as you're working with it, here you might see the part tipped. This gives you the ability now to gently rotate that about the center of gravity. You can set a Z height now just by picking a point. All right, so that sets the Z level that you're working at. And then likewise, if you have any rotation, you now can use the part point to designate any rotation. So that all happens as you bring your work part in to your mold design environment. Runner has done some improvements here. So now we have a better looking rounded end and also much better control over the section. Okay, so just like with solid drive, you see some improvements. Now you see it here as well. So that improvement, anytime you've got a section being driven, is propagated throughout. We showed this a little bit when it came to the cylindrical center lines. I've put it here again inside of mold design since that's what it really is for. It will do the trimming. It'll do multiple colors. It will also put your center lines on the individual sets. And then this is also really part of drafting, but again, it refers to something specific from mold design. The view attributes can always be shown now. So your manufacturing technique attributes that can always be highlighted then when creating a view. And you'll note that the ejector pin visibility is now on this view attributes panel. Okay, slight change there. In Electrode, we've had a couple of improvements as well. When you get to burn body, if you like using that solid type of option for creating your Electrode, you now have an option called optimized rectangular. So it tries to find the nicest way to fit a rectangle across those burn faces with the option of do not cut or cut. And then finally in the EDM setup, you can pick an existing folder and path your way to it if you're going to name files and send them over for NC purposes. Again, no subtle suggestion here. Please check out the What's New document to review further information about this new release. We'll take a few minutes now to look at what's new in assembly and mold design. So starting everything with our mold project setup wizard, we'll go through the task of starting the job. So we give it the name, we point to the folder location, we pick the number of inserts we want for our cavity layout. Are we going to work in inches? Yes, we're going to create subassemblies. Now we'll just tell it where we want to save that file. And you see it's already building the subassemblies on the left. So pretty simple. Everything here is pretty much as we've known it to be. Going into layout, let's play with that a bit. You note here it says that the layout can be accessed through the setup table. Here you see all the factors that control the layout part, the rotation, all that's there. So let's just widen the distance between the cavity and center location. That gives us just a little bit more room to work with as we're putting in our part. Now we get to something new. The load work part interface has changed. Now you see set the master part, set the work part. All this is just to make things a little easier to understand. So obviously when we set the work part, we're going to expand it and do all the things we're used to. All right, we'll go ahead and we'll create the parting surface part as well. And now once it's grabbed the part we're working with, we just simply pick the cavity locations. And there we have it. More changes are coming at you here. You note that the part is tipped. You note that maybe the placement isn't exactly right. So we edit the work UCS. Right, it says that, yeah, you have to save it. So nothing new here yet. We'll calculate the center of gravity. Nice feature that helps us understand where that center point is when we're doing our layout. You see the pink dot helps us capture that very well. All right, that having been done, we still have some tweaking to do. Let's go over to our option of setting the height. You now see there's a point there that allows you to pick where the height's going to be in Z. Likewise, there's a point to help you pick a rotation. Let's say we're going to rotate these 90 degrees and now preview the mold position. Likewise, we want to tip it. What does 10 degrees look like? We'll preview it. Tip it around so we can see how the parts line up. Does it look like we're square yet into the mold? Of course, if we know the tip value or can measure the tip value, if we just insert it, maybe 12, preview it again. Preview is coming in handy here to help us see how we're orienting the part in mold position. So a lot of tools available now to enter the tip in mold position while just bringing the part in for the first time. Let's look for a moment at the light bulbs you see here on the tree. So perhaps we take the parting surface part and say, oh, let's suppress it. And the idea is to see how these light bulbs now are changed. You see that the suppressed part has the S in front of it, but also has a unlit light bulb or a clear light bulb. It's not gray like a part that's been blanked. Also, the main assembly light bulb has the black dot next to it. The black dot says I'm showing you all the parts I can possibly show you. The part in deep hide, you'll see that's black. Any part that's blanked is gray. Any part with a dot off center is showing you everything within that subassembly that can be shown. And then anything that's suppressed will be that lighter, whiter color. So a little bit of change here, but it helps communicate pretty quickly, you know, what is being displayed, what is not being displayed. Was a change in setup, not a big one, but one to talk about. If we're looking at formulas, you know, you can set a lot of things to how you want to arrange your formulas. Here we're going to use a formula by list. And when we say by list, that means we're usually, as in this case, going to pick from a catalog. It could be a catalog we create. It could be a provided catalog from one of our vendors that are in our catalog library. And whatever value that is there, that's going to show up as something that's a dimension that can be used in that catalog. So it's just a matter of what list are we picking. All right, here you see maybe we're picking W. That's going to be the catalog. The icon has changed so that you can see on the icon that it's a formula being driven by a catalog. So not much there, but it's a good review to show you again how much power you have inside a setup. All right, with that, let's step outside of the part. Let's load in a new part here. Actually, this is a mold assembly that's already in progress. There's not much to it, just a B plate, just enough for us to illustrate some of the new things found in 2024. So let's take our core block, our B plate, we'll make it active. Let's display it in a way that looks good, easy enough to see. And we'll orient it down here into like a plan view. There have been some changes made in the runner function. So let's build out a runner here using the tools that we have available. All right, so we'll start first of all by creating a sketch of a runner. And I'm just going to use the geometry that I have in front of me to pick a plane, pick references. But what is new about the runner is that we have better control over the cross sections. So instead of a cross section always moving normal to the face that it's cutting, we now can force it to be established in the Z direction. So holding the profile as it works across the face. Here I'm just going to do some simple sketching, some offsetting to make like a 2-gate combination here. And we'll try to keep it balanced, of course. All right, so there's one side. We'll jump over to the other side. If you don't use this much, it's a nice little review. Give you an idea of some of the things that you can do with Sketcher, working with Runner. So I'm working on a plane at this point. I picked the bottom of my slide pocket to be the plane I'm sketching on. And I will pick references now for where the plastic part sits, and we'll offset from that reference. Let's give it a distance that makes sense. You can work your runner up to the end point of that line we're sketching, or that end point can serve as the middle of the round if you're using a rounded end on your runner. And that's something to point out too, is that rounded ends are better in 2024. Okay, now we can clean our sketch up a bit. And I'm just going to remove the unwanted lines. Just a few more clicks, we'll have this done. And we'll be able to proceed on then in actually building the runner. See, I've got a couple little slivery faces I need to deal with. Slivery sections, I mean. So let's get rid of those. There's that little skinny one there. Okay. So it's a fairly balanced runner breaking right down the center. We'll go ahead and now project it to the faces that we're working with. So as we pick the runner body, pick the faces, you can see how it previews it right on top of the face. All good. You can create a composite or not. In this case, why not? We'll just treat it all as one entity. All right, back to our set tools for runners. Now we'll do a runner body here. And this is where you really put in the knowledge of your runner. What shape is it? You can pick from any of these standard cross sections and put whatever dimensions you want so that you can create the runner. We'll do something that we would probably mill just on the core side, the core block. So let's pick one of the trapezoidal shapes. Give it some dimensions that make some sense. I want it to be big enough that we can see it, but at the same time, not get too ridiculous with it. All right, so we'll go about 1/4 inch. Put a radius in the corner, 10 degrees on the sidewalls. That looks good. Notice the section right now is being held at vertical. That's where you can make the changes that control how you want the bodied or this cross-sectional view to work. Normal to curve? No, we want vertical. Other options you have are going to allow you to look at the picture of what you're building. You can also control your slug well. Let's just run it at auto length and build it accordingly. We go edge to the tip, could be edge to the center. Center to tip looks perfect. Rounded end, everything looks good. We'll go ahead and build it. All right, that's being done. We can merge it. The merge function, it can be in the pull down for solid. It can also be in the runner design tool on your guide to the right. Now it's just a matter of simply saying, let's cut to the runner. What are we going to cut? What are we going to cut by? And like that, we now have the runner. You can also include a central line if you wanted to use that to guide your cutter as you cut the runner into the core block. Okay, and there we have it. So we'll undisplay the runner part at this time, and to zoom up on here, you can see we've got a nice looking runner, and we've got the line that we can use to drive our cutter with. And this brings us now to the subject of Electrode. So I'm going to open up an Electrode project. Of course, it looks like the mold we've been working with here for our entire user group. You can see we've got an Electrode in progress. There isn't what we call a whole lot new in Electrode, but what is new is fairly interesting. Let's zoom up on this so that we can work with it in a planned view. What's of note is I have ribs that are fairly straight, 90 degrees, 180 degrees, and then I have some of these that are off at an angle. So let's look at the ones that are off at an angle here. I'm going to pick where I want to identify my burn faces. So I grab the ones that are on that rib, but I also grab extra. We'll go ahead and just do a quick little unselect box to get those faces removed. Maybe I'll try to fit or center, see if that improves things or reduces the overall size of the graphite. Again, it does some selecting. You can see the challenge is I've got a lot more graphite now because that's off center. It's at an angle, so that requires me to use a bigger amount of graphite in order to get the geometry captured entirely. Now, I don't necessarily want to put the rounds in at this point. So let's use our filter, which is expand to round. And as I pick the edge, you see how it chains all the way around. So in just like 3 picks, I've got all those radiuses removed. Now I can just put my center of attention right on the faces that I want to burn. One face was not selected. It appears it was pretty big. So it was left on, on trim. I could have used the trim option. That would have filled that hole in for me. And of course, since I'm putting the patch across there, let's just go through and stitch all that. Okay, so those are my burn faces that I've got identified here. Now we get to what we find is new here in Electrode. Create a view so that it makes it easy for us to orient our position. We'll just call it hold for now. That's my M view. And however I may rotate or spin the part around, I could come back to that position. You have something here called optimized rectangle. Now you see how it works. You see it squared itself around the shape of those burn faces. Regular rectangle works in the standard XY direction, but optimized will tip itself so that I can use less graphite and whittle it down without having to spend so much, right? So in this case, that's a fairly nice option. You have the option too of no cut if you want to keep that a solid blank. Okay. In this case, let's go ahead and cut it. This gives us an opportunity to play around with solids. In our last user group meeting, for when we did version 16 rollout, we talked about how strong solids are now for making electrodes. And we'll illustrate that again with this one. Right? So I've got a true cookie cutter shape here. It grabbed everything. Now I'm telling it just to go through and eliminate some of these features by doing remove and extend. So one click and I'm grabbing a lot of area. All right, I can see that I've got like a little fillet or two wrapping in the back corner. Let's say we get rid of those. Okay, a lot of techniques you can use too. And there's one that's especially useful and quick that we'll get to. You know, it's doing well to work with these different pieces of geometry and unravel it. Sometimes you have to go a little at a time, sometimes a lot at a time. All right, now I'm going to tell it, let's just take the whole end off. I don't really want those, so we want to take it out straight off the end. So it's just a matter of grabbing the faces that we don't need, and you see how it trimmed it. Do I have to always grab everything? Let's do a cut option now instead of remove and extend. We go to solid cut. We're going to cut the entire blank. Now using the face filter, we will pick the faces and walk around the part. So starting on this side, we'll go ahead and keep our cutting object. Starting on this side, it gives us the cut. Flip the cut around and we can see what it did. Pick the fillet, it gives us an error. Keep going. It will figure it out. Pick another fillet, get another error. Still keep going. And you can see it works with those faces and trims groups of faces, with groups of faces across the entire salad. That's a lot of power. That is some good functionality. All right, now we get back to building a regular electrode. We go ahead and create our blank, and then we'd want to do our solid extension. Of course, we're going to go right down to the blank on this. As we drive it in a straight direction, we got control over the step. We can use simple step or regular step. Simple step is going to follow the shape of the blank like you see here. But now if I flip that around and use just the regular step, you'll see how it now follows the shape of my burn faces. So this is a nice way too of getting those extensions to, again, not use so much material like we would have before. So this brings us to our last subject in this presentation. We're going to talk now about what's new for die design. Here we have a part ready to go. We've got a binder somewhat developed around it in the light blue color. And what we need to do now is sketch where we want a center line of a drawbead to go. So we'll use this sketch to drive it and show you what's involved in this brand new function of drawbead. Right? So we walk right into it here. I don't have to project that curve up to the faces. That's what we're going to use. It'll be the center line. It's built to the binder. And then we have two cross sections currently. So you can control the dimensional values on either of these cross sections, whether you pick a squarish drawbead or more of a round drawbead. You have full control over all these radiuses. We know the radiuses are the critical parts of the drawbead that are actually going to do the work of stretching, slowing the material like a speed bump. Okay. Go ahead and build it, and it will build that drawbead, and it will also cut it into the binder. Of note too is you have the ability to taper the end of the drawbead. That's nice. As we look at the part closely and turn it, kind of spin it around, you can see why you need to have that taper. That way, you can get that feathered end on the end of the drawbead. So there's a lot of power behind one simple and quick function. Beat it up. It's brand new. There's going to be some issues with it, but beat it up and let's see if we can drive it to become a more complete product. And with that, we've reached the end of this particular presentation. So let's take any questions you may have.
Now, Dave, we have another session after this?
We have drafting, yes.
Okay. All right.
Okay, let's see where we're at now. See, Dan has joined the fray. Where did we leave off? Question about mouse pads. Okay. Can someone please clarify what the silhouette function is and how it works to help me split certain complex geometry along a potentially contoured parting line, or perhaps point me to educational literature? That's just, it's two functions that do it. One is under faces, one is under wireframe. So obviously the wireframe just generates the curve. Faces will actually split the face right along that curve. If we're pressed, Ralph, are we pressed for time right now?
No, we got a few minutes.
Okay, I'm thinking maybe after we complete everything, we can come back to answer Jamie's question so we don't tie everybody up. Okay.
Yeah.
Why must the runner part be outside the sub-assemblies? There's no choice here. Keep it in the active assembly. Well, we'll take note of that. I see the fist bumps.
Dan already got that one.
Yeah, Dan got it. There's a preference.
Okay. I see. Okay, file read only. Crashes. Hotkey with Control E, Control F. The way to set escape, Control F, Control E, and a space bar as hotkeys. I believe it.
No, those are Windows hotkeys natively.
Yeah,
there's no overriding those.
It's like trying to set Control Alt Delete as a hotkey. Mouse gestures. I don't know of any plans for that. I like the angled faces on electrodes to go past the part detail on the trode. Can we add a distance for a tangent face extension before going straight to blank? Potentially nice option. We can look at that.
Now you do have that. You've got that ability right now. You can do extensions tangent, a minimum distance, and then you can go vertical from there.
Oh, okay. Okay, I understand now.
Even in solids, it exists there, and it also exists in surface extensions.
Okay, very good. When I use the hide command via the right-click drop-down, I am unable to exit the command by hitting escape. Can this be fixed? Is there a known bug on that?
Say that again.
It's like he wants to hide command. He right-click, hits the right-click drop-down, hits hide. And then after he hits that, he can't get out. He says, even if he hits escape.
Middle mouse. Just hit the middle mouse. Yeah. So middle mouse is exit.
Okay. Does that make sense, Corey? Okay. All right. And then Terry's asking if we could show a tapered end drawbead. We could probably get back to that too at the end, if that's all right with you. Okay, anything else? Am I going too fast, or am I?
No, I think slow down. I think you're right on. So.
Okay. All right, let's take drafting then, and then we can get everything all together here. This now brings us to the drafting section of our 2024 user group meeting. Again, the reminder, please just put your questions in the chat box, and we will get to them in the Q&A session afterward. Okay, so we already talked about this one, but data interface. It's worth bringing up again that now we can import a PDF directly to drafting as well as model. Also, we have the ability of exporting that directly into a PDF. So we've already went through this before and demonstrated it, but it's worth mentioning here since we're in the drafting section. Some other things that are improved is view creation. Now there's better control for creating the type of view. And then when creating an auxiliary view, you'll see that the filter for edges is now available. Multiview creation now has better control. You can see those slide bars for the spacing. The settings can now be saved. And if you do make a save to that, it's going to change the name red just to remind you immediately that that setting file has been saved. And then you see the light or smaller green check for apply. That now is available for immediate use, but you can still stay in the function and keep on creating. In the array of frames, it's now easy to remove the loaded model from the list. So this is now giving us more control over positioning the parts. The center views and the frames now are added also, so those optional location can come from the corner of the frame. Here's an interesting one that's been asked for a while, a minimum distance dimension. So you now see the box that you can click on the dimension panel. And then we've created a few new symbols. So it's within the Elite symbol text or TrueType font. You can now use the symbols for counterbore, countersink, depth, and you can see the rough little illustration over there on a note where those symbols can go. Surface roughness, geometrical tolerance, geometrical datum. They also now support these new symbols. We have the ability to update all sheets, so all the models that are linked to this particular document will be updated. Now, when doing so, this is going to override anything that you've done on top of that drawing. It's going to override your views, whole table BOM. And likewise, the same thing occurs if we did an update using batch. It's nice we can use multiple drafting files and update that, but bear in mind that it will be done using global parameters to all of them. So again, all the local changes are going to be overridden. And now the drafting standards definition has been improved. It's been written for greater clarity. You're going to find that on your control panel, okay, right below where you see attributes, reset all. It's all within the settings for the drafting standards definition. View attributes has had a couple of things added to it. One you see at the bottom is to show the manufacturing technique attributes. So that's included in that view. And as we mentioned before during our mold design section, the ejector pin visibility has been moved to the view attributes panel. So that's where we would control how those ejector pins look. And as always, we encourage you once again, please review the What's New document at your earliest convenience to see all the new changes in 2024.
Let's start with something outside the drafting environment, and that is drafting batch update. So what this allows us to do then is pick any number of different drawings, and it will update the views of all the models in any of these drawings. Something to take note of though, that in this update, it will overwrite bill of materials, table of holes, things like that. So we want to double check to make sure those are correct after doing a batch update. Here it says everything is just fine. So what we'll do now is go into the drafting environment by creating a new drawing document. Some changes have occurred in the attributes. Important ones, maybe small but important, such as showing the manufacturing technique. That's there. Also the ejector pin, how you want to display those ejector pins. That's right here under attributes. So to set something up, let's go ahead and pick a frame. That's the same as before. You can have your custom frames here. I'm just picking one of the generic ones to start with. And now we can go into our multi-view tool. Now right away you should see some differences here. Some work has been done on the view spacing, and a nice new tool has been added for creating that spacing. We'll pick the block that we've been working with throughout our user group meeting. You'll see it then generate the selected views, top, front, side. We can change those views just like before. We can change the scale just like before, so nothing really has changed in that functionality. So I place it here inside the frame, and now we can play around with that view spacing. That's this slide bar that you see here. All right, so that gives a nice way of controlling the views inside of the Multiview creation tool. Also, you can isolate just your up and down or your vertical spacing as well. So that should make the drawings easier to work with, as well as making it more enjoyable, honestly. There's a new apply button, so that small green check mark, you can hit that. That will execute your drawing and then keep you inside of Multiview creation. Inside view creation, something of note is up here on the filter. You'll see the edges are there, as well as picking a view. So I pick a view, but now I can pick edge and curve. So if I go over here into the view and pick an angled line like this, and then pick where I want the view, you'll see it now has oriented it based upon that angle, whatever it happens to be. And as I position the view, you'll see it's keeping that vector direction. So it's staying normal to that picked edge. So that allows for creating some odd angled view fairly easy. So something other than top, front, side, we can use just the geometry right within that view, the neighbor view, to derive that angled view. A few other things under view options, just to point out to you something here that you need to bear in mind. There's more control now under view options, so please take a moment to take a look at that. All right, we're going to look at another subject here. So just to kind of clean up, I think we'll delete this view that we created. And let's move on to something else here. So under drawing, let's create a new sheet. There's my blank sheet. Coming up to views, you have array of frames. Hopefully you've been working with this. What allows you to do now is basically set up how you want your drawings to look using this array. Do you want to use the typical settings that are under default? You can save your own settings to some other name. Okay, once this is established, it allows me to pick exactly what part I want to work with, and then it's going to build the drawing. So here I'm going to say start at this point. It could be the edge of the frame, it could be whatever I want it to be, and using this array, it now will position in those different views. So that's a nice handy tool to keep in mind, and it has been improved in 2024. Something else very nice is now to have a minimum distance dimension. So if I first start creating my dimension, it's going to place it typically straight up and down or sideways like before. But under the options, you now can set minimum distance, and that gives me that most direct dimension between 2 points like you see here. Nice improvement. Under edit, there's update and update all. All right, so that tool has been given to us to go through and update different drawings. Under your G, D, and T, geometrical tolerance, datum target, surface roughness, also can use new symbols, which are found in the Elite Symbol True Type font in your fonts directory. And then here under settings, please keep in mind the drafting standards definition S2 has been improved and changed a bit. So if you want to set your standard up, this is pretty easy. You can go through all these different topics and set them to whatever you want them to be, and it'll hold those standards for you. So a lot here, a lot of different things to play with. So that touches on just about everything, brief as it may be.
And that concludes our portion for drafting. So, okay. That should do it. If there's any other questions about anything in particular, go ahead and type them in and we'll get to answering them. Looks like we've got a few that Dan has been tackling. Okay. All right. Well, looks like most of those have been answered.
There's a few in there that are still pretty large. Can you show the tapered end of a drawbead?
Yeah, we can get to that. We'll have to do that afterward here.
So when we go through grooming or engineering changes, we stack new assemblies for each grooming EC under the main assembly. This way we can see the history of the tool with each change that we have made. Is there an option that keeps the files in the design but hides it from show all components and isn't included when exporting with the rest of the mold design to a step file? Almost like suppress component, but easily be turned off, on and off without regression.
Interesting. Too busy looking at my notes over here. That I'm really not sure of, honestly. What do you think, Danny?
So there are a couple different ways that you could handle this. The thing that comes to my mind is, rather than stacking all these changes within the initial mold design, I would add a new main assembly, add my mold design to that, duplicate that, make the changes, and then when I want to export, I would just simply export that first main assembly. The old assemblies can be marked as ignore and show, and they can be marked ignore and export as well. So those are both preferences. However, I haven't done it to tell you that it will work on an entire assembly all at once. But that's how I would do it. I would just select the one assembly that I want to export instead of trying to export from the whole assembly where they're all put together.
Okay, thank you. I think I'm getting caught up here. All right, so export PDF still doesn't pick paper size automatically. Why not add paper size?
Dan got something about that, yeah.
Okay.
In drafting, when you load a template with views and the scale is wrong, do I have to still do every single view individually, rescale them, or can I select multiples and do them all together?
I believe it's still individual.
I believe it is as well.
But we still see so much being developed here in drafting, that's worth mentioning. We could probably have them take a look at that.
And we import PDFs to modeling. Dan already covered this one.
Yep.
It can be done.
Yep. Size. How to pick center point. Start ordinate dimensions. Is there like a UCS on that center point? If I think of like a mold plate, you'd probably have a central UCS on the mold plate. That's been the usual way I've done it. No, much like select a counterbore hole or a tapered hole in drafting and have it dimension both hole sizes and depths, each in one note. I don't think we've done any improvement on that in terms of distinguishing both of those.
No,
those would be the same as before.
That's not an option. That's not an option yet. It has been in discussion. It is a known request, but we do not have it implemented, and we're not sure when it will be implemented.
Okay. Can you create a section view on a curve or arc? So we do the 3D section, we do regular, just cut section, you know, like you just draw the section line. So you want to curve it, like have a sweeping arc go through the view and then create a section on it? I don't know that we've ever done that.
We don't support that. We don't support that. All our section views are straight lines only.
Right. Okay. Okay, so we're looking at drafting standards. Dan has that.
Now, to be clear, when we cut a section view, we do have the ability to define steps in the line, but they are straight steps. They are not. There are no arc steps that can be allowed at this point.
Right, and those straight steps, they can be unfolded like an accordion or kept in position. So however you want to view that, you know. Okay, I believe I've gone through the list here. If I missed it, please add some more here to it. And we'll make sure we get your comments and your questions.
There was one comment about reading the preference file as a read-only in Windows. And Andy did answer that.
Okay.
So the idea is that there could be situations where files crash because the preference file gets corrupt, and Andy basically says that locking the file is a last resort. We prefer to go through with the customers how the changes are made to the preference file after installing a clean working preference file before actually locking it to read only. A preference file causing a crash is extreme and something best handled over the phone with tech support.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah. All right,
can you export drafting to a PDF to show shaded views?
I don't believe we do shaded views.
Well, drafting supports shaded views. I just don't know if it goes into the PDF.
Good question. I don't think we do. I'd have to confirm that though. You said there was a feature for adding a dimension, minimum length. What about maximum length? I do a lot of roll dimensions, having dimension to a target on a pin. We unfortunately do not do a roll dimension like that, maximum length. I would probably have to unroll it and then get the length on it. PDF, export drafting. Exporting does not do shading. Okay. Printing will. Thank you, Richard. Any other comments, questions? Please fire them off. We got everybody here who can take a look at it. What's nice about this, I can see, is that we've got this document here of chat, so we can go back and see what is the most important, the things that you've been asking for, the questions you have. And it's pretty wide open. You know, the only thing we haven't discussed is NC, so any other comments or questions, please go ahead and add them.
Yeah, Dave, why don't you jump out to show that silhouette and show the drawbead on the tapered end.
Okay.
As people start to,
if you want to go ahead and do the drawbead, I'll take the silhouette.
Perfect. Thank you, Danny.
As some people are starting to drop off, I just want to thank everybody for their time this morning. It's greatly appreciated. We had over 180 people attend this, so this was well attended, and we're glad to pass on the information. So thank you very much, and turn it back to the guys.
So this is a very simple part. It's just a brick, and I've put some angle on the outside and wrapped a radius up around. And if we were to try to build a mold around this, we'd have to split it somewhere around this radius. The options that we have, there are two. The first is split silhouette, in which we would pick all the surfaces, and then once we've picked those surfaces, if we want, we can preview that and see where it's going to split them automatically. We can add a draft angle. So if you were doing some sort of texture on the part and you had to have a minimum of 3 degrees, you can throw that value in. In this case, 3 degrees brings it up closer. I think I put 5 on these vertical walls. You hit the green check and then the faces are split. However, sometimes that may look good on most of the faces, but there may be certain faces that don't look good. Maybe the one here on the corner. So an option for that would be to go into wireframe, use the silhouette option here, pick all of the surfaces that you want to consider, and then when we preview that, you can see the same curve that was used. Now in this particular case, if we weren't interested in the curve that gets created here because it made a bad result, we might go back and just unpick that surface so that it doesn't get created there. Once that's been done, then we might choose to build some sort of spline between here and use that spline or any other curve, composite around all of them. Go and turn off the hide curves behind. Composite. All the way around and then split the faces with that.
So 2 different options on that. One to do it in the split faces, and then one to do it with wireframe when you have to manipulate corners.
Grab the composite and let it split so that it gets split. So that's how I would go about handling the silhouette options. Those are the 2 silhouette options that will help you through a face that's twisted across the parting line.
Okay, very good.
Hey, Danny, somebody asked the question is how do you pick the center point on an ordinate dimension? If you could maybe show something on that. I didn't quite understand the question. Why Dave's doing
drafting. Yeah.
Why Dave's doing.
Okay.
Let me go ahead and do the, I'll do the Drawbead while you set that up then.
Yep.
Okay. I'll take back the share. And here I've got my Drawbead set up. All right, in the original case, I had taper end off. The option is to have tapered end on. And here you get an idea of what the distance is, how far do you want it to go, and then how much of a horizontal drop is it. So let's go ahead and see if it calculates with just 1 in 40 as default. And I'll tell you, frankly, there's going to be a lot of circumstances where Drawbead won't work. It's an infant function. We know we have more to do on it. So, we ask you to do what you can with it, beat it up, tell us what improvements we need, and things like that. So that did not give me the results I thought I'd see. And honestly, I'm not so sure that that's a surprise to me. Let's change those values a bit. Maybe we'll shorten this up and go maybe 4 and see what we get here. But the idea, you need the taper in there so you don't have a big bump that gets locked underneath. Here it's trying to draw it, but it seems to have failed on the bottom fillet. And I guess that makes sense because I've just run out of room here on the end. So you get the idea of what it does.
So basically it's saying, if you go back to that function, Dave,
yeah,
it's saying at 20 mils back, I want to start dropping 4 mils down.
Yep, exactly.
That's basically what it's saying there.
Oh, where did that thing go? Drawbead. Right. So maybe give it more to play with in terms of distance, and
do only
keeping
2.
it shallow. Yeah. I might want to change my height then if I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
To give it more room to play across. See if it now has room to drop that radius. No, it still is giving me an issue. We fully expect that there's going to be things we need to improve on it. What I'm especially interested in is getting the right functionality for it. For instance, like we know that the radiuses here would actually grip the material. This drawbead is fine for putting it on the metal part, but it's not the way that I would form the drawbead on the tool steel. So we know that. We would like to be able to use this as a reference and then be able to describe what that punch steel should look like or what that die steel needs to look like in order to create it correctly. Okay, so that's the kind of direction we hope to take it in, but more feedback we get from you, the better options we'll be able to write into it. Our own Dan Branch is actually the one who's taken this by the horns here. So we thank him that we have even this much to start with. Maybe I'll keep it smaller and try it. Hopefully that satisfies you in terms of what we can and can't do as of now.
You need a smaller rad at the bottom, Dave.
Give that a shot. Let's see. Okay, so rad at 2, like that 1.
Yeah.
1 and 40. This seemed like 20 at least showed me something. Again, I probably should have played with the height on that. Thinking. And you know what that means? That's either good or bad.
Yeah, I think.
You see it trying to do it again.
What's the smallest rad you can put in the base, Dave? Like a 0.01?
Possibly.
Try that, and then try ripping the rad off and replacing the rad after the fact.
Down in there.
I think what really the dysfunction would be, it looks like it's able to build the first chunk, but it isn't able to actually radius that back into the main part. And it may be that this function could have a complete result, partial result option.
That's a good idea.
Where you choose you're going to use all of it or none of it, because it looks like it built the main portion. The only thing that would be left now would be putting a rad in.
Yep.
Dan says it's there.
You can take the rad off, because I could probably wash them off their radius.
Dan says that the partial result option is there. He'll find that drawbead again and edit it again.
There it is right there. There's the partial. It doesn't have the rad on it.
Okay.
Yeah. It's just
now
a matter
of
put
the lower rad on.
Yeah. So it's not going to be here like a button you pick. Here it is, hidden behind the dialogue. Okay. All right. Let's push that through again. So now with the solid round, there it chained over this way.
Looks like it missed some going down the right-hand side, maybe. I can't tell. Nope, I got it.
Yep.
Review that, see if I can do it.
Well, there it is. Of sorts. Pretty small.
Well, that's a 0.5. Try something larger, whatever you were intended to put in.
2.
That's a metric file. Put in 5.
2.
2, whatever.
But it did. I like the partial results, and I like the taper side of it. But it seems like this is something we got to turn into them, because that seems like the original 5 mil rad should have worked.
Looks like there'd be room. Let's take it up to 5 and see if it'll do it now that we're doing it manually. Go figure. It even looks like it handled the tip right there. It's got a separate section, so it did it.
Yeah, Dan says it should go up onto the top fillet without any issue.
Good.
So it just needs a little more work. It's close.
Yep. Exactly.
All right.
Like all things, it'll get there probably, sooner than later too.
Okay, one other question came in. It says in dynamic section, you used to be able to middle mouse to save the location of the section. Now you have click the arrow to turn off, show, hide, and change arrow direction. Is there a way to change it back to the middle mouse option?
No.
I don't think there is. Yeah. It'd be nice to have that in a preference.
Yeah, put that in a improvement request on the Connect, and let's see how it gets voted up or down.
Yeah, cool.
I'll go ahead and share the drafting.
Okay.
So the question was, how do we find the center point for doing the ordinate dimensioning? There's a couple of different ways. If the part's been created where the coordinate system is under the center of the part, we can double click the view and we can go and turn on the coordinate systems in the view and see whether they are on center. In this case, they're not, so that's not going to be useful. If I need to still do ordinate dimensioning from the center, then I'm going to use a line of symmetry, and it's going to look, give it a second here.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't tried this in 24, so.
Yeah. I mean, I get the idea what you're doing.
Yeah, so let's go back and fall back to 16.
It's a way to do it for sure. Man, we'd like to keep it easier than that though, because you're gonna have to lay down 2 different lines of symmetry to get the true 0 point dead center, right?
That's your only choice. There's no other choice.
Yeah.
Unless one of the other engineers has some idea, there is no other choice unless you create the coordinate system ahead of time in modeling. So that would have been, wow, 24 crashed hard. Create an inch file. Pardon me for taking a moment here.
I suppose a potential workaround would be to put a coordinate system while you're in the modeling space and put it on center.
Yeah, that would be the only other option. So in the main part,
your part has to be truly symmetrical though, if you want to get dead center.
Well, you could build a coordinate system wherever you want to start in the solid object. Mm-hmm. So in here, this one will not work. However, if we were to go back and actually build one in the solid object.
Right.
Regardless of where it is. Then it will be in the drafting. We still have to go back and turn it on.
Right.
Well, in theory, we have to update first. Then we can turn it on. We can turn the other one off if we want.
Mm-hmm.
Then we can dimension from there.
There you go. Yep.
Or the other option is to create the line of symmetry, both directions, and then dimension from those.
Yep, exactly.
All right, I think that's
it.
That's enough. So
oh, got your comment, Terry. Metric in an inch file. Yeah, we'll look at that even further. Let's see, and then what do we got going on here? Steve. So center of gravity was the question. It's a part property, and you can see in measure or utilizing some UCS function. Okay. So could we use center of gravity? I guess that's to be the location of our ordinate dimensions. We could do it if we were to put a UCS on that particular spot. But I think
center of gravity would be a bad choice.
Yeah, it's really meant for our part properties, isn't it? Not so much.
Yeah, we use it typically. Center of gravity would be used to determine where we're going to put lifting bolts, eye bolts.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
But it doesn't necessarily, it doesn't correlate to any feature of the geometry as far as being in the center of the actual geometry. It's actual mass.
Yes.
So if the part's skinnier on one end, we would get something very odd.
Yep, exactly. Okay, so okay, Dan picked up the metric inch issue. Thank you for bringing that out. Definitely, we want to check on that. Andy already reported it. Okay, excellent. Well, if there's anything else, you can always get a hold of us, email us, call us, whatever the case may be. I don't know, Ralph, are we good?
Yep, I think we're good.
Okay.
Thanks everybody, and we look forward to seeing some of you on Thursday for the NC portion. So thank you all. Have a great day.
Thanks, guys.